Ever wonder how a ballerina can, like, pinpoint their limbs with such incredible control? Or how about how a reflex can save you from a nasty burn?
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It all boils down to this often overlooked part of our nerve system, the spinal cord.
Right?
So today we are taking a deep dive into this information superhighway, and we're using excerpts from this medical textbook to, really uncover its secrets.
Yeah, it really is incredible when you think about it. I think, often take the spinal cord for granted, but getting how it's structured and how all these messages, they just whiz through it, it's key to appreciating how we function on such a, precise level.
Absolutely. So where do we even begin with something as complex, as intricate as the spinal cord? I feel like we need, like, a map, a starting point. Where do we even begin?
Um, let's start with just a really fundamental division within the spinal cord itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the separation between sensory information coming in and then motor commands going out.
Okay.
So imagine, a bustling city with two-way streets.
Yep.
Our median strip is something called the dentate ligament.
Okay, so the dentate ligament, that's like our dividing line.
Exactly. It separates the dorsal nerve roots, which carry sensory information up to the brain, from the ventral roots. And those are the guys responsible for sending those motor commands back from the brain to the muscles.
Gotcha.
And this, clear division, it's crucial for preventing any, information gridlock.
So it's like two separate channels, ensuring smooth communication for those, like, critical feel this and do that messages.
Precisely. But here's where it gets even more fascinating.
Okay.
Even within these channels, there's a surprising level of organization.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Take the spinal accessory nerve, for instance. This nerve is responsible for head and shoulder movement, but it actually sits dorsal to the dentate ligament, even though it's primarily carrying motor commands.
Whoa. So there are exceptions to the rules, even at this, like, fundamental level. That's wild.
It is.
It seems like the more we zoom in on the spinal cord, the more intricate it becomes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's delve a little deeper into those channels that we were just talking about. Those bundles of nerves, they're called tracts, that run up and down the spinal cord.
Okay.
You might picture them as this jumbled mess, but they're anything but.
So how are these tracks organized within the spinal cord? Because it does sound kind of messy.
Right. So imagine looking at a cross-section of the spinal cord.
Okay.
You'd see distinct areas. They're called laminae, each with its own, specialty, like departments in a well-run company.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking at figure 1.15 at the textbook, you'll see these Roman numerals.
Okay.
Those are the laminae.
This diagram is incredible. It's like a secret code within the spinal cord.
It really is.
Yeah.
And each lamina has its own unique role to play.
Wow.
Yeah, for example, lamina the second, also known as the substantia gelatinosa.
Oh, wow.
That one is particularly intriguing.
Okay.
It's heavily involved in processing pad signals, acting as a gatekeeper that can either amplify or dampen those, ouch messages.
So that's how we can experience different levels of pain depending on the situation.
Exactly.
That's amazing. It's like our spinal cord has its own built-in pain management system.
It really does.
But how about those motor pathways? How does a command from the brain actually translate into movement? We've got those signals traveling down, but how do they get to the right muscles at the right time?
Yeah, that's where the descending tracts come in.
Okay.
One in particular, the lateral corticospinal tract, is like the star quarterback of movement.
Okay.
It's the primary pathway for voluntary movement. It originates in the brain's motor cortex and relays its signals all the way down to the spinal cord.
Wow.
Think of a baseball pitcher winding up for a fastball. The smooth coordination of their muscles relies heavily on this tract.
Okay, so it's the express lane for intentional movement.
Exactly. And you would think this crucial pathway would be highly organized.
Yeah, you would think so.
Well, what's fascinating is that, it starts out with a clear structure in the motor cortex. So, neurons controlling your feet are grouped together, those controlling your hand are grouped together, and so on. That organization gets a bit scrambled further down the tract.
Really?
It's like shuffling a deck of cards partway through. The information is all there, but the arrangement changes.
That's so unexpected. You'd think that such a, vital pathway would maintain that neat and tidy organization all the way through.
You would think.
What's the significance of this, jumbled arrangement?
That's a question researchers are still trying to unravel.
Wow.
It suggests a level of complexity we're only beginning to understand. It could be that this rearrangement allows for greater flexibility and adaptability in our movements,
Hmm.
or perhaps it plays a role in our ability to learn and refine motor skills over time.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder what other surprises are hidden within these intricate pathways. So we've covered how motor commands travel down from the brain, but what about the journey in reverse? How do those sensations like pain, temperature, and touch make their way up to the brain?
That's where those ascending tracks come in, carrying a constant stream of sensory information from our bodies to our brain.
Okay.
So imagine different sensory receptors in your skin, kind of like specialized sensors, each tuned to a specific input.
Huh?
Let's take the example of, I don't know. Let's take the example of touching a hot stove.
Ouch! Okay, I can definitely relate to that one.
Right. So when you accidentally touch something hot, specialized free nerve endings in your skin, they immediately spring into action.
Okay.
These nerve endings are incredibly sensitive to heat and pain,
Yeah.
and they send out urgent signals that travel along specific nerves, enter the spinal cord, and then
And then those signals continue their journey up to the brain, right? But how do they know which lane to take?
they have their own dedicated express lane, and it's called the lateral spinothalamic tract.
Wow.
It's a key player in our sensory experience, responsible for transmitting that pain and temperature information with lightning speed. This rapid relay is what allows us to react quickly to potentially harmful stimuli.
So it's like our body's own internal alarm system.
Exactly.
Oh.
And what's even more incredible is that the spinal cord doesn't just carry pain and temperature signals. It also processes different types of touch, each with its own dedicated pathway. It's like having separate lanes for different types of vehicles, ensuring smooth and efficient traffic flow.
That's fascinating. I never realized our sense of touch was so complex. Tell me more about these, like, different touch pathways. What makes them so unique?
Well, think about the difference between feeling a light breeze on your skin versus like holding a textured object.
Yeah.
Those sensations are processed very differently. Light touch, for example, often travels along a pathway called the anterior spinothalamic tract,
Uh-huh.
while fine touch, the kind that allows us to discriminate textures and pressure, takes a different route through the posterior columns of the spinal cord.
So even within a single sense, like touch, there's this whole hidden world of specialized pathways, each carrying a specific type of information.
Exactly.
That is incredible. I am loving this deep dive. This is so cool.
And what's even more amazing is that these pathways don't just carry like raw sensory data.
Okay.
They also play a role in shaping our perception of the world around us.
Really?
But we'll delve deeper into that fascinating aspect a bit later.
Okay. I am already hooked. This is truly a deep dive into this intricate world of the spinal cord. This is blowing my mind. We've got all these different types of sensory information, light touch, pressure, temperature, all traveling up these like separate neural highways to the brain.
It's really wild.
It's like a sensory symphony happening within us all the time.
It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of these like distinct pathways, it reminds me of something we touched upon earlier.
Right.
Dermatomes. Remember those zones of skin we talked about?
Right.
Each one connected to a specific spinal nerve route.
Right. Those dermatomes.
Yeah, they're like your skin's secret map, revealing which areas are linked to which parts of your spinal cord.
Right. So how do they help us like understand nerve issues? Because it still seems kind of like an abstract concept to me.
It's actually incredibly practical, especially in a medical context.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Doctors use their knowledge of dermatomes to pinpoint the location of nerve problems.
Wow.
Let's say someone experiences numbness in a specific part of their hand. By considering which dermatome corresponds to that area, doctors can trace that numbness back to a particular nerve root in the spinal cord.
Huh.
It's like having a troubleshooting guide for the nervous system.
That makes sense. So it's all about like connecting the dots between those skin zones and the nerves that, supply them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Think about like the classic example of hitting your funny bone.
Oh, yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
That tingling sensation, not so funny when it happens.
Not at all.
But it perfectly illustrates the concept of dermatomes.
Okay, so when we hit our funny bone, what's actually happening in there?
So that like unpleasant tingling,
Yeah.
that's actually the ulnar nerve being temporarily compressed.
Yeah.
And the reason you feel that sensation in very specific areas of your hand and forearm is because of dermatomes.
Oh.
Those areas are all supplied by sensory fibers from that same ulnar nerve root.
Wow. That's why the sensation feels so localized, even though it's a nerve being affected higher up in the arm. It's like a domino effect, with the impact at one point affecting a specific zone further down the line.
Exactly. It all comes back to that elegant organization we keep uncovering within the spinal cord.
Right.
It's not just a random jumble of nerves.
Oh.
It's a precisely structured system where different regions are responsible for specific functions and connections.
This is all so fascinating. Okay, so we've covered how the spinal cord is structured and how sensory information travels up to the brain. But let's circle back to those descending tracks, the ones carrying motor commands.
Okay.
We talked about the lateral corticospinal tract being the star player for voluntary movement, but are there other motor pathways we should know about?
Absolutely. There's a whole team of supporting players, each with its own specialized role.
Okay.
One important one is the medial longitudinal fasciculus.
The what?
It's a mouthful.
What?
The medial longitudinal fasciculus.
Okay.
This tract is crucial for coordinating head and eye movements, ensuring they work together smoothly and efficiently.
So when I'm watching a tennis match and my eyes track the ball as it zips back and forth across the court, that's the medial longitudinal fasciculus in action.
Yeah, exactly. It allows you to maintain a steady gaze and smoothly track moving objects, which is essential for everything from playing sports to just reading a book.
Yeah.
And this coordination happens effortlessly. We don't even realize the complex neural symphony happening behind the scenes.
That's incredible. I never realized how much goes on behind the scenes just to track something with my eyes.
It's a lot.
So we've covered these amazing pathways for movement, but what about those ascending tracks carrying all that sensory information? We talked about pain and temperature, but what about our other senses like touch?
Excellent question. Remember how we discussed those different types of touch, light touch, pressure, texture?
Yeah.
Well, those sensations are carried by distinct pathways within the spinal cord. It's not just touch as one big category. It's a whole spectrum of sensory experiences, each with its own dedicated neural pathway.
So it's not just a matter of something touching our skin. Our nervous system can actually differentiate between a gentle caress and a firm handshake.
Precisely. Our sense of touch is far more nuanced than we often give it credit for.
Wow.
Think about the difference between feeling a light breeze on your skin versus holding a textured object. Those sensations are processed very differently.
So how do those signals get sorted out? What's the traffic control system for all these different touch sensations?
It all comes down to those specialized pathways we were talking about.
Right.
Light touch, for example, often travels along a pathway called the anterior spinothalamic tract, while fine touch, the kind that allows us to discriminate textures and pressure, takes a different route through the posterior columns of the spinal cord.
So even within a single sense, like touch, there's this whole hidden world of specialized pathways, each carrying a specific type of information.
No.
It's like having different lanes on a highway, each designated for a particular type of vehicle.
Exactly. And what's even more amazing is that these pathways don't just carry raw sensory data. They also play a role in shaping our perception of the world around us. It's not just about the signals themselves, but how our brains interpret them based on the pathways they travel.
That's mind-blowing. So our experience of touch, like feeling the softness of a feather or the roughness of sandpaper, is as much about the journey those signals take through our spinal cord as it is about the actual sensation itself.
Precisely. Our brains are constantly taking in sensory information and using it to create a coherent picture of our surroundings. And this interplay between the spinal cord and the brain is essential for everything we do, from the simplest reflexes to the most complex movements.
This is incredible. So much is happening beneath the surface, and we don't even realize it. Okay, I need a moment to process all of this. It's just amazing to think about how our senses, our movements, even our reflexes, they all depend on this intricate communication highway running through our spine.
It's really remarkable.
We've covered so much ground today, from that organizational wonder, the dentate ligament, all the way to those specialized sensory receptors in our skin.
Yeah.
It's like with every new topic, we're just peeling back these layers of complexity.
Definitely.
What stands out to you as the most surprising thing we've learned?
I think what really gets me is the unexpected complexity of those motor pathways.
Okay.
Particularly that jumbled arrangement we talked about in the corticospinal tract.
Yeah.
We often picture these crucial pathways as being perfectly organized, like a well-structured flowchart.
Right. Very straightforward.
But the reality is so much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's true. It's like discovering a hidden room in a house you thought you knew, like inside and out.
Exactly.
And it makes you wonder what purpose this, like, seemingly chaotic organization actually serves.
Right. And that's, I think, that's what makes this whole field of study so endlessly fascinating. Each new discovery, it opens up even more questions.
Yeah,
And it challenges, like, our assumptions about how things work.
definitely.
This unexpected jumbling. It can be crucial for our ability to adapt our movements to different situations, to learn new motor skills,
Mhm.
maybe even to recover from injuries. It's a
Oh.
whole new avenue for, like, really understanding how our brains and our bodies, how they work together to produce such seamless, coordinated movement.
It really highlights how much we still don't know about this, like, seemingly simple act of just moving our bodies.
Right.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the spinal cord, what's like one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the spinal cord, it isn't just a passive cable,
Yeah,
just relaying messages between the brain and the body.
right.
It's the very dynamic, highly organized, and frankly, awe-inspiring part of our nervous system.
Yeah.
It plays such an active role in processing all that sensory information, coordinating movements, even shaping how we perceive the world around us.
It's like the unsung hero of our nervous system, working tirelessly behind the scenes to make all of our actions, all of our experiences even possible.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So the next time you feel a gentle breeze on your skin or you effortlessly reach out to grab something,
Yeah.
just take a moment to like really appreciate that incredible journey those signals are taking through your spinal cord.
Wow.
And just the intricate symphony of neural activity, it's happening within you every second of every day.
What a beautiful way to kind of end our deep dive. It's been an absolutely fascinating journey, and we hope you've enjoyed this exploration into the incredible world of the spinal cord. Until next time, keep those questions coming and keep exploring the wonders of your own internal universe.